Happy Thursday. Watching the Democrats freak out. I think it's become one of my new favorite things to do. Elon Musk, evil Elon. You know what's great about Elon? That he gives something that Trump didn't have in the first one. And I was talking about this last night. I did an interview with my buddy, and I said, Elon gives Trump something that he came nowhere near having when he first became the president. He gave him a wingman. Somebody who gets as many, if not more, arrows right now fired at him, takes pressure off him because everybody's obsessed with Elon. Elon is, if you were in the, think about this in the Democratic mind, you are trying to design the evil person for your horror nightmare. So the first thing you're going to do is it's got to be what? It's got to be a cis man, a heterosexual male. And he's got to be white, right? Like, and let's be real. If you've seen Elon without a shirt, you know, in San Potre, you know, in some of these, like, you know, Monaco or some of these places, you're thinking to yourself, he's see-through, right? Like, I mean, that's how white he is. I mean, he could haunt a room. So then you go, okay, what's he do? Well, he is a tech bro, right? So that's an automatic evil. And, oh, by the way, he's the richest man in the world. That is, if you went to central casting, what they want. And he takes so many arrows for Trump. And he likes it, right? Like, now,
I was going to say, he seems to be a big fan of that.
He does. I mean, well, and he gives as many as he gets to, which is phenomenal. I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal. But he does give Trump something he's never had. Trump, you know, look, as much as people get mad at, like, Steve Bannon, who, by the way, if you guys like Steve Bannon, great. Steve Bannon hates Elon Musk, cannot stand Elon Musk, believes Elon, in many ways, he believes with the Democrats, he's a giant threat to a lot of stuff, especially the MAGA movement. And so that's a bizarre situation right there. But Bannon was not the wingman, right? Mike Pence wasn't the wingman. So you start looking around, and there wasn't a lot from the last administration where took some of the heat. And in this administration, you know, like Marco Rubio's not taking the heat. He's not taking, I mean, like Kash Patel and some of them, they'll get some of that during the nomination period. But Elon's taking it 24/7. He likes it. He's got a voice that drives all of them crazy because he's able to go to Twitter. How many people did you say what he had? 210, 216 million people on Twitter? Is that what you said, Bell? 216 million?
Yeah, he's up to 216 and change because, you know, when you have that many, change matters.
Change does matter. Most of us would just like to have the change at that point in time. He's almost got as many Twitter followers as he, well, actually, he's got more billions than he does Twitter followers. That's insane. But I want you to think about this, because I like to look at stuff in a very macro, not a micro way at times. So many people want to look at it, and it's just easy to come out and have the outrage, right? That's what the Democrats are doing. Everything's about outrage. It's overdone, overcooked. But he gives them this perfect person to yell at, to be mad at, to go after. And look, some of the stuff he's doing, I do have some, you know, like you're in certain areas, I mean, that, you know, you're under investigation for some stuff. National Relations Labor Board, several others, you know, looking at, but you're running billion-dollar corporations. Every billion-dollar corporation is going to be under investigation at some point in time. That's just what it is. You're going to be sued. You're going to, all of those things. I remember one time, my buddy worked for a big pharmaceutical company, and they were out in Orange County, California, and they've got this huge building. And he and I were chatting and stuff, and I said, I go, like, because they had this other area that was just really cool. It was like 3 stories. And I said, what's that? He goes, those are our lawyers. I said, you're lawyers? He goes, we spend more money on lawyers at times than we do actually trying to do R&D, because that's we're litigious society. So I expect some of that from Elon. Do I think he is maybe getting a little too much to run around with? Yeah, I think so. And I think Trump at some point in time will go, all right, we're going to pull it back a little bit. But right now, he's having at it. And when I hear people say, oh, he's at the Treasury and they've changed all the code and they couldn't do this. You do realize there were people out there that were supposed to turn some of those passwords and things over and they refused to do it. Secondly, he can change nothing. Look, as much as people want to change stuff, and I'm a big proponent in changing some of this stuff, that was never going to happen. But fear-mongering is a good thing if you're a Democrat right now, because you think in your mind, hey, this is it. And being on the team right now, the Democrats, and being in the minority, they're fear-mongering, and they're missing the point on all of this stuff. But it's the easiest thing to do. You've got zero responsibility. You can scream, cry, yell, jump up and down, do everything you want. And if things go great, well, you're not going to get any credit for it. But if they go sideways, you could say, I told you so. They're hoping for it going sideways. And they're mad at him. And they're mad at him because he's exposed stuff that's ridiculous. And so he is enemy number one at this moment in time. As much as Trump is doing his thing, having that heat off of him and allowing him to do some stuff, even say some stuff that doesn't carry the insanity of the news media 24/7, that's got to be a little relief.
And Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut, joins me now.
So I just think there's a tipping point at which you can't get your democracy back. And I see all of these very purposeful lines of effort that the Trump administration and Elon Musk are taking. And I think we just have to be right now at this moment on red alert mode. And what I see, right, is the normalization of violence when you're thinking about going out to a protest and you might get beat up by somebody who has immunity for violence in Trump's name.
Now, I'm trying to figure out what that means. Does that mean I'm allowed to punch somebody I disagree with and then yell, like I just yell out of nowhere, Donald Trump? And I don't know, is he a genie? Does he show up? Or do the police just say, oh, he said Donald Trump? We can't do anything. Once again, a lie. Hyperbole much? No, never. Continue, sir.
I don't think you can underestimate the impact of what's happening in our media infrastructure, where major platforms are either under the direct control or influence of the administration. And then what you're seeing now is an attempt to capture the funding streams of the government so that Elon Musk or Donald Trump can turn off your grant payment to your elementary school if it doesn't pledge loyalty to Donald Trump's political positions, or your mom's Social Security check if she goes online and says something critical of Elon Musk or Donald Trump. I mean, I just think if we don't stop this very soon, it is going to be hard to mount a credible political opposition in the not-so-distant future. So this is the moment to me.
So I just want to go over that. Where do we start with the BS? And if we were on podcast, I would not say BS. Where can we start? Well, let's see here. Does he have the power to apparently flick a switch if, let's just say your mom, we'll call her Nancy, right? Nancy tweets, likes, says something mean about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's the worst, whatever it is. They would then, magically be flagged? There would be some sort of special button, or you type something in that automatically cancels her Social Security check. If you believe that, and you know what's sad? There are people out there that believe that because they believe all of the things that they hear because they refuse to do research. They refuse to go out and look and say, maybe that's not true. And that's why I challenge you guys. I mean, look, some of you get upset with me. You're a liberal, Chad. You're all those things, whatever. I mean, I hear that all the time. But I challenge you every day to challenge your beliefs, because if your beliefs can withstand actual criticism because you've got data and facts, that makes you it just solidifies what you believe. That gives you a lot of confidence. And a lot of people don't do that. The other thing he talked about is the media, which is kind of a tough day to do that, Chris, when you consider the fact that the USAID organization was spending more than a few bucks on Politico, New York Times. Now, this is through the years, but all of the media that they were spending money on for wacky subscriptions, which, have you guys never heard about, password sharing or something like that? The fact that you spend $8.2 million on on subscriptions, so everybody's getting a password, is tremendous. And Politico tried to blame Elon yesterday because their paychecks didn't go through. And there's a big, it's a long, crazy, convoluted thing about was one group they were working with, Politico, that kind of pushed them into the whole thing about Zelensky and the phone call. And was that group actually part of the CIA? And were they, there's all of this stuff. But New York Times, Reuters, BBC, all of these wired news media getting any money, especially from an aid organization that's supposed to be about international development. Oh, yeah. Bernie Sanders actually talked, because he's worried, always worried about something. And he did say something here. I'm like, I absolutely agree with Bernie when he was talking about the fact that, doing Bernie, hey, it's me, Bernie. I want to talk about this. Talking about, hey, you know what? Yeah, I agree. We got to cut some stuff, and we got to take it on. Yeah, we do. Look, I'm glad that he's exposing some of the ridiculousness, but if we're going to get serious, and we're going to talk about it later, how we're going to actually try to cut some of this stuff down with our spending, we're not tackling anything. This USAID thing is nothing. It's nothing. It's less than 1% and then some. I mean, it is virtually nothing. Elon's can work around certain areas, but to get to the heart of it, there's three things you got to look at. And we will not touch some of these things, which is a sad situation. Because if we're going to be honest about ourselves, we're running out of money in programs like Social Security, Medicaid, and yes, when it comes to our giant bloated budget for the military, we've got to look at where we can cut there. We pay 10 times what retail is, and we sign contracts that are stupid that force us to continue to buy stuff that in many cases is obsolete. We don't even use, and they sit in warehouses. So we've got to look at some stuff, and those are like the big three that nobody wants to touch. What? Because it's the death of you politically. But you know what else is the death of you? Not saying something, and then when it goes sideways, everybody goes, what happens? What happened? A lot of stuff to get to today. Hey, Ken, did I hear news about you?
What's that, brother?
31 years.
Oh, yeah, 31 years married to the love of my life.
Oh, I thought you were sober.
Well, most of it.
No!
Dude, 31 years. That is awesome.
Yes, thank you.
I think all of my marriages combined were never 31 years.
Well, it hasn't always been roses.
No, but that's life.
That's life, man. Yeah, it's difficult, but...
You know what? The ride or die is the most important thing. You get that person that will ride or die with you no matter what.
Yes.
That is so... Like, that's it, I mean, it's one of those things where, that you guys listening out there, you get that person, everybody's got a friend. Like, guys have a friend that, like I said, you call at 3 a.m, they're like, dude, I need you to come over and bring a shovel.
Yeah.
That's your ride or die, right?
But
it's the same thing with with your wife, right, or your husband. You want that ride or die that it doesn't matter that my wife was being a jerk and she probably deserved to get yelled at. I have to punch you in the face now because that's my girl right there.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. What are you guys doing? Anything special tonight?
No, it was yesterday, but we wait until the weekend. We're gonna come up here to Nashville, maybe wear some real sharp clothes, do a little dining, and we're gonna head over. We like smoking cigars.
Nice.
So we're gonna sit around, maybe drink some wine and smoke cigars, and then eat.
You taking her to a death metal concert? Something going on at the Ryman that you could take her to?
No, Cannibal Corpse, they're not here in Nashville tonight, or rather this weekend, so no. Last year we saw Pantera on our anniversary.
Where?
At Bridgestone.
That wasn't a Metallica show, was it?
No, that wasn't a Metallica. That's not until this May. But Pantera, that was one of our favorite bands while we were dating, and we never got to see them back in the day. But we got to see them on our anniversary 30 years later.
There you go, man. See?
And it wasn't the same. I mean, the Abbott brothers, God rest their souls, they're not with us, but Zakk Wylde stepped up, and Benanti, the drummer for Anthrax, I can't remember his first name.
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie Benanti. And I mean, it was great. So you had Rex Brown and Phil Anselmo. I mean, his voice is, it's still just, I mean, he can still hit those high notes.
They were at the show, and Ken was like, honey, you got a mouth for war.
But anyway, yeah, and you're right, Chad. I mean, it's, you got to get that ride or die person, and I was blessed, to find one.
Yep. If you don't have somebody that will kill for you, you need to find a new partner. That's what I'm telling you guys. That's relationship, just a little relationship help from right here from your Uncle Chad. Coming up, a lot of stuff to get to. We're going to have fun. We're going to talk a little bit about trans sports. Speaking of trans, a little bit later, we're going to talk about the nightmare that's happening with the Oscars' greatest movie ever, because the trans person is now hated by everybody in Hollywood because of what she said about George Floyd, and they've gotten rid of everything that has to do with her, which is hilarious. It is Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. Raycon, best earbuds around. You guys hear me talk about it all the time. Fit, feel, second to none. I love it. You get 6 soft gel tips with your everyday earbuds. Active noise cancellation, which at this price point is virtually impossible to find. Sound quality. They've got all kinds of different ways you can switch in between. You want isolation mode. You want active noise cancellation. You want awareness mode. They have it all. Top of that, they've got the best headphones around. They've got the best when it comes to any audio for your home. It is amazing what they have, and it's 20% off with a 30-day happiness guarantee. You should pick up the best in audio. So when you're listening to Matt and Dan and Chris and myself, guess what? You're rocking and rolling because of your Raycons listening. So whether it's headphones or your earbuds, grab them now. 20% off with a 30-day happiness guarantee. Buyraycon.com/Chad. Buyraycon.com/Chad.
We are monitoring reports of a military plane crash in the Philippines, taking 4 lives, including at least 1 U.S. service member. We'll get you details on that and other top stories at 12:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
Boo. I was telling Belle earlier, you want to make sports more interesting? Get the women out of them. I'm kidding. Everybody settle down. I'm going to go watch the WNBA. Who's playing? LeBron?
That was a lie at the word WNBA.
Yeah, he identifies as a woman, and boys, is she good. Did you ever see Chappelle talk about LeBron? If he joined the WNBA, he'd score 45,000 points a night.
Pretty much.
Yeah, look, it's great. I mean, are there a ton of women, men playing in women's sports? No, not at that level. Let's and it was just common sense. This is one of those things where if you want to have debates about gender and this, that, and the other, the debates that happen out there, I go, okay, we can do that. Again, I live in a world of reality and common sense, and if you want to identify it as I don't care, as a stick, I don't care. But when it comes to this, yeah, I've always wondered, when did we start asking the girls that we supposedly care so much about, right, that their voice no longer mattered, that the boy in there you had to believe was a girl? You're like, looking over there, it's got twigs and berries. You don't have one, but you have to believe that's a girl. Now, if you go full Monty, you know, respect, all right? You're willing to do that? I'm willing to go, hey, okay, cool. But many of them didn't. And there was zero area for people to stand on. There wasn't. I was yesterday, so I watch, I'm on YouTube and I'm pulling some audio and doing some stuff. But I love to watch non-league soccer, like what I used to play, to like the lower leagues. And there's a great show about called A Bunch of Amateurs, BOA, Bunch of Amateurs. There's a guys who started a park league team, and next thing you know, 10 years later, they're almost getting ready to go professional, and it was not something that they ever thought. But underneath, there was a video. It was the best under-16 girls team, soccer, in Utah, taking on 9-year-olds. The girls won 3-0, but the 9-year-olds should have scored, like, several goals. But they're 9. It's and a couple of them are very big, by the way. I was like, that's a big 9-year-old. But then underneath, they had another one, and it was like an under-18 girls team taking on a 14 and under boys team. And the 14-year-olds won, and it was easy. But there was one point where a girl's running for the ball, and they're all in the same club, so it's not like some of the brother and sister. They're all in the same club. There's a point, though, where a girl's running for the ball, chasing this 14-year-old kid, and this little kid shoulders, and he's probably taller than me, shoulders this girl, and she goes flying. And she's 3-4 years older. It was just never fair. Ever. And when we ever talk about transgender in sports, what do we never talk about? It's like Linda became Larry, and now she can't stop scoring on the boys. Right?
Yeah, it's never that way.
It's never that way, right? It is never. It's like, okay, Trump didn't sign something yesterday. Go, finally, we're keeping girls out of boys' sports.
Right.
No. It was just something that was common sense. And it doesn't mean we need to be mean and horrible, because I've seen a lot of that stuff. But you know what? Is there a place? Yeah, you can play, not club, but you can go play some other rec stuff, because there's a lot of that. I've played co-ed soccer and softball and stuff like that. But when it comes to that competitive side, there's a reason that they separate them. And if we want to get serious and say, no, there is no difference, then get rid of all genders and just say it's sports. But I have a feeling the girls, the women who love playing their game would say, no, that's not fair, because they know they wouldn't play anymore. Coming up, kids. Egg apocalypse is going on right now because of the bird flu. And because of that, have you thought about renting a chicken? Wait till you hear this story. It's fantastic. Rent the chicken. Yeah, we're doing that straight ahead. Chad Benson Show, Super Talk, 99.7.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. National Weather Service has increased the risk of severe weather for Middle Tennessee today. We've gone from marginal to slight. In other words, from a level 1 out of 5, with 5 being yes, it's happening, to a level 2 out of 5 as a little stronger maybe than a level 1. Nonetheless, we'll be watching it for you. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. We're monitoring reports of a plane crash killing an American service member and 3 defense contractors on a mission in the Philippines. This was a military aircraft. All 4 bodies have been recovered. And reports say that a water buffalo on the ground was killed as a result of the crash, too. At this morning's National Prayer Breakfast,
I'm signing an executive order to make our Attorney General, who's a great person, she's going to be a great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the head of a task force, brand new, to eradicate anti-Christian bias.
the Religious Freedom Commission is what it will be called. I am getting a breaking news alert right now coming out of D.C. It says a judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from implementing the federal employee buyout offer. And the Department of Homeland Security is raising new safety concerns about internet-connected cameras made in China. A bulletin obtained by ABC News shows Homeland Security believes there are tens of thousands of Chinese-made cameras that could gain access to critical U.S. infrastructure networks. And when the Rutherford County School Board meets tonight, they'll vote on a resolution to ban DEI practices district-wide. Some say that's not necessary.
I get what you're trying to do. I want to support what your intention, but it's not going to go anywhere right now.
Yeah, another board member said they don't see a need to push against DEI without a similar bill being proposed to fight against it at the state level. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Get your ready retirement toolkit from our buddies over at Beacon Capital Management. So obviously there's a lot going on in the world. It's happening fast. Uncertainty, little nerves. You don't want your retirement to end before it begins. You want to put yourself in the position to protect yourself. That's what Beacon is going to do. It's your money, investments, and your retirement. You want to make sure you take care of it, and they're going to help you with that. You deserve to have confidence. You can meet with them in person, which is great. So here's the thing. The Retirement Ready Toolkit is going to come to you loaded for bear with all kinds of great stuff. You're going to get Money Enough for Life book, a retirement planning checklist, and a Maximizing Your Retirement Income white paper. Zero cost to you, zero obligation, no pressure whatsoever. Don't let your retirement stop before it even starts. Put yourself in the right position with Beacon. Get the Retirement Ready Toolkit now. Call 615-488-9303. That's 615-488-9303 or online at askbeaconnow.com. Water buffalo, somebody asked about in Ken's report of the plane crash. What's the difference? Water buffalo, specifically found mostly in Asia, certain parts around water, hence the name water buffalo. And the Cape buffalo, a little bit different, native to Africa. One is used for milk and meat, while the buffalo itself, just the regular one, just a wild animal. So there you go. Look at that. See, we help here.
And you don't want to pet them.
No, doesn't matter which one it is.
Right.
Because there's somebody
Leave
out
that
there.
to the bison in Yellowstone.
It is. I talked to a lady last year who was attacked by one. She came out of her. They were staying there.
Yeah.
And she came out of her thing, and her and her husband were going for a walk. He forgot his.
She came out of the car? Or
No, it was like a little cabin, like a yurt.
Oh, gotcha.
They came out, and he went back in to get his coffee, and as they started walking, the buffalo came out of nowhere, hit her.
Wow.
And they punctured lungs, broke. I mean, that thing was really mad, and she was in the hospital for quite a while. They were raising a bunch of money because she was an Arizona native. They were trying to get her home.
Goodness.
But she said it was just like, you can't even imagine, how you think people are strong, and then you run into something like that. And she goes, it's like, it'll toss you 30 feet in the air and just keep moving.
Sure.
I will bet you money that the husband paid the buffalo to do that.
Yeah, you know what? Is that the ride or die right there? Is that what you're talking about? He's like, die. Aw. Chickens, they make eggs, those hens. Eggs, by the way, apparently have a street value.
Pennsylvania State Police, they responded to Pete and Jerry's Organics in Greencastle, southwest of Harrisburg, which reported 100,000 eggs stolen from the back of a distribution trailer over the weekend. Estimated value, $40,000. The egg company works with 200 independent family-owned farms across the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and New England. No word from police on how such a large theft could have occurred unnoticed, or if the case will be over easy or hard.
Look at the way they did that there. 40 grand for eggs. They've got a street value. It's like, dude, what do you got? I got a kilo of eggs.
Yes.
Man, you better watch out. Yeah, don't get high on your own supply. High cholesterol, that is. I got a million of these guys, right? Like, we're moving weight today, so let's just deal with it. But chickens, during the pandemic, a lot of people, they thought, I'm just going to grow my own stuff and have chickens. And then it got old when they had to go back to work. Now people are going, maybe we should do this again, but we don't want to own them. Well, you can do something else that's different. How about renting them?
Avian flu forcing farmers to euthanize millions of egg-laying hens to stop the spread, leading to less supply and higher prices. If it feels like a persistent problem, that's because it is, says Texas A&M livestock economist David Anderson.
This started in 2022, and it keeps popping up.
Trying to keep their fridge stocked, some consumers are turning to a novel idea: rent the chicken.
We bring a chicken coop with 2 to 4 egg-laying hens to someone's backyard. 2 hens lay about a dozen eggs a week, and 4 hens lay about 2 dozen eggs a week.
All right. So there you go. That's how we're getting it started. Okay, so we're getting you ready for this, just in case you're like, I got a bunch of people, maybe you got a small little business, and the eggs are they're 40 grand for a whole giant truckload of them. My goodness me. What are you going to do? How about renting those things? It's pretty awesome. They produce, which is good. Because what if you got one that sucked and it just didn't do anything? You don't want that.
Launched in 2013 near Pittsburgh, Rent the Chicken partners with farmers across the U.S. and Canada, offering 6-month rentals. Safety measures, Jen Tompkins says, have kept their flocks from falling ill.
We only buy from trusted flocks or from trusted sources to expand our flocks, or we raise our own. And we're not offering farm tours, for instance, and we have specific shoes for when we go care for our chickens.
Okay. They got specific, you got to take care of these things. All right? Because we're renting the chicken. And when you're done with them, you know what? You got chicken, but you're only renting them. And I'm going to tell you how much it costs for this.
Tompkins says they tend to see new customers during bird flu outbreaks, like one around 2022. That's the same year the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows a sharp increase in egg prices, which also shot up in 2015 during another outbreak.
Prices skyrocketed to, at that time, record highs over $5 per dozen in the wholesale market. And then the disease went away, prices came down, and we didn't have to deal with this until 2022. And so this time around, instead of happening and going away for a few years, it happens, and then it happens again, and it happens again.
Anderson anticipates record-setting egg prices before they come down near summertime. So if taking on chicken seems like the way to go, with no farm partners nearby right now, North Texans just have to drive down to Austin to pick them up.
That's right.
And if it's not a good fit, they can chicken out.
Now, we can do it as well. So are you ready for this? So, Belle, you said, Chad, I would love for you to do this for me. And I said, Belle, let me help you. The standard package, and you're better than standard. I'm just giving everybody the thought out there. You go to rentthechicken.com. So the available rentals start from April through October, May through November. They're going to deliver, set it up, all right, pick up the contents when all is said and done. You're going to get 2 Rent the Chicken egg-laying hens. They're going to produce about 8 to 14 total a week. You're going to get a coop, food dish, water bowl, as well as 100 pounds of chicken feed and a copy of Fresh Egg Daily. That's going to cost you $4.95.
For how many months?
6 months.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. The upgraded package, like you're going to get a little bit more. It's $100 more. But you're going to get a giant deluxe kind of Amish made. That's what they call it. They call them Amish made chicken coops. So you get that. And if you want to go big, $6.95, you're going to get 4 egg-laying hens, produce up to 28 a week. And if you want to go beyond big, they got one that's $1,000 for 6 weeks or 6 months. But it's easy to move. It's ultralight. It's got all the stuff. You're going to get tons of chickens, 150 pounds of feed. It's about $1,000. There you go, kids. Get an emu.
Do they know what kind of eggs a certain chicken is going to lay? Like, is it going to be large or small?
Like scrambled or over easy?
No, I don't quite think it works that way.
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, maybe some of you out there listening on the text line, you could tell us because we're not egg connoisseurs. We eat eggs, but we don't know anything about eggs. We had some chickens, but because my big lizards used to love to eat chickens. Live ones, which, it's weird. My daughter's 6, and you would think, I don't want to see things get eaten. She had no problem watching, especially like certain things. Now she's a little bit older. There's when she was younger, because she recognized, because she grew up with the giant lizards and the snakes and the retics and stuff, that they need to eat. But sometimes the stuff they eat is furry. So there you guys go. If you'd like to rent a chicken, you can do that. People are looking for ways to save money. And it's not the worst thing ever. So many people did that during COVID, man. During COVID, so many people were home, and where we lived out in the middle of godforsaken nowhere, as I call it, the Valley of Dirt people out in Arizona at the time, getting somebody, because I have custom-made cages built for my lizards, and they're big. I mean, they're walk-in, because my lizard's 6-7 feet long. Norman's massive. We dug a pond. I mean, he's huge. He's like, 80, 90 pounds. He's massive. He'd easily take down a rabbit. The issue was, when we were moving him, we couldn't find anybody to make coops because they were so busy, because so many people were getting chickens because they were hippies, and they thought, this is what we're going to do, man. It's going to be awesome. It didn't go like they thought, though, because once you had to go back to work and reality set in, what are you going to do with the chicken? Plus, they make a mess. They make messes all the time. So Trump just lost the buyout thing. It's been put on hold. Say lose. I mean, these things are going to happen. And this is what, when I tell you guys, when we talk about stuff and some of you get mad when I say certain things, I said yesterday, and I always say, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to blow smoke. I'm not going to tell you things that you want to hear, so you get, that's not about the affirmation side of stuff. A lot of what Trump is doing is he's throwing things against the wall. He is. And if you listen, when Chris and I were doing a crossover, FDR, when he came into power, the reason everybody talks about the first 100 days is how important he made those first 100 days. He had a plan. And coming out of the Depression and looking at what was going on in America, he said to himself, there wasn't enough help for Americans. We needed to do more. So he expanded ridiculously the federal government, but he did a lot of it through executive, orders. Not everything stuck. I mean, not everything took. They threw it, you throw it. He said that it wasn't going to. Trump's doing the same thing, but in the opposite. He's trying to shrink government and get them away from you in the federal side of things. And not everything is going to stick. And he knows that. He knows that. And even people who think, well, once it gets to the Supreme Court, because we've got a majority, they're not going to, just because Trump's president doesn't mean they're going to go, well, he's president, so I'm just going to do whatever he asked me to do. That's not the way it works. They look at the Constitution as the highest thing that we have that's not the Bible or whatever religion or whatever. That is it. That is it. And that is the most important thing. And if constitutionally it's the right thing to do, they'll do it. But if not, they'll rule against Trump. And anybody, as they should, because that's what we want. We want the Constitution to be that thing, because it is that thing. So he's going to lose a lot of these. He expects that. But it's more about making people aware of a lot of this stuff. And the shrinking the government thing, you guys realize that if everybody in the government quit, like I'm just talking about their paychecks being gone, it does very little to the amount of spending we do. That's because the three big out there, and several of you have chimed in earlier about the military. We're going to hit that next hour. About Social Security, we're going to hit that next hour. About Medicare, we're going to hit that next hour. Those three things gobble up so much of what is our spending that everything else is just, it's just like it's on the plate of food. You ever seen that? You ever go to one of those shishi restaurants and they put a little garnish? That's a lot of that. Like the USAID, it's just a little bit of garnish on a plate. You're not eating it. You're throwing it away. It doesn't mean anything to you. That steak, that's Social Security. This potatoes, that's the military, right? Like your big, giant, huge, rib or dessert. Well, that's, Medicare. Oh, my goodness. Everything else is just for looks and show in a lot of ways. And that's what's frustrating for a lot of people. Coming up. Man, so much craziness going on out there. Birthright citizenship just got blocked again. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. What are the numbers at the border as well? If you miss any of the show, Bell, what do we tell these people? Guys, we're just talking about chickens. You don't want chickens. You want the big yum from Omaha Steaks. Steaks, we all know how delicious they are. Omaha delivers the best. 5+ generations of dealing with nothing but the best. The way they handcraft, the way they put it together, whether it's fillets, right, that are incredible. Maybe you're saying, Chad, I like steak, but what else do they have? Pork chops, which are my favorite. Their pork chops are out of this world. And if you know anything about pork chops, they're not always easy to make. These are incredible. On top of that, you've got hot dogs, hamburgers. They've got surf and turf. They've got everything. The big yum is going on now from Omaha Steaks. And here's the other thing. 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. If you're not happy, bite for bite, send it back. They'll give you your money back. It's that simple. Right now, go to omahasteaks.com. Minimum purchase may apply. Use me, Benson, right there. Once you do that, you're going to save $20 off. It is the big yum going on right now. Go to omahasteaks.com. That is omahasteaks.com. Make sure you use my code, because if not, I'm going to be super sad, and then Bell's going to come to your house. Use code Benson. omahasteaks.com, code Benson.
A U.S. military contracted airplane has crashed during a mission in the Philippines. The Trump administration's federal employee buyout offer on hold. President Trump making news at the prayer breakfast, and Rutherford County School Board members vote on DEI tonight. All of this and more at 1 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
So look, the U.S. Border Patrol, we know how to get the job done. We know how to secure the border. All we needed was a president that was going to empower us, a strong leader like President Trump, and then a secretary like Secretary Noem that knows exactly what we need to do to secure the border. We're seeing almost a 90% decrease in illegal entries since January the 21st. Not only that, but our criminal prosecutions of those we're apprehending is up almost 52%. You talked about, you led in with the Tren de Agua. Our U.S. Border Patrol BORTAC unit is out there with ICE making those arrests. And so, look, Border Patrol knows how to secure the border. All we needed was an administration that would let us enforce the law, and we're out there, and we are seeing phenomenal gains on the border.
So you got the heads up, the Border Patrol right there. That unit he was talking about, that is their version of SWAT. And if you remember the shooting in Texas a few years ago at the school there, that BORTAC unit, that was actually not the police, but it was those guys who went in there because that was on the border. And the numbers are down. And that's half of the battle is stopping people at the border. That is half of the battle, stemming the flow. You're never going to get it to zero. It is just never going to happen because desperation will cause people, as we already know, to go through the most incredible, dangerous things to do what they have to do to survive. And I don't fault anybody for that. I don't. It's funny when I'll say, I'd do the same thing if I was in there. No, I wouldn't. Yeah, you would. If you had to feed your family and you had no other way to feed your family and you were desperate to do it, you would do everything you possibly could. But you would also know, look, there's always a chance that I'm going to get caught. But enforcing the actual border, turning around people almost immediately and repatriating them into Mexico is vitally important. Because what you're going to see is that message is going to be sent that, try if you want. But unlike the last guy, no guarantee. And if you get popped, you're going right back. Right back. So I love that. Still have to figure out what to do on this side. Because obviously that's a big issue. We don't have enough beds. So, that is frustrating. And for a lot of people, you guys are probably, if you guys have no idea, that many of the people they're taking into custody, they're releasing. So ICE is going out, they're getting them, and then they're releasing them straight back out because there is no beds. And there is only a finite time. You can't keep somebody on hold indefinitely. So they have no bed, just like they do in a lot of places where, if you get caught and you've got a warrant for something ridiculous, like you didn't get a dog license, which has happened before for people, and they're looking around going, all right, we're going to cut this person loose because we don't have enough room in here. We're not going to keep them in perpetuity. Could you imagine if you got popped for not having a dog license? I forgot where that was. It's got to be California or like Illinois. And you're in jail with people who've done really bad things, and you have to tell them that you forgot to register your dog. You didn't get a license.
I carjacked a lady and her baby was in the back seat. What did you do?
I didn't get my dog registered. What? Was it like a fighting dog? No, it's a poodle. Yeah, so it's pretty tough. It didn't go well. So you don't want to fight me, do you? You're not going to do horrible things to me, are you? Oh, my goodness me. Coming up next hour. Miami is telling everybody, hey, spring break's coming. Don't come here. But if you do, come here like you're a nun. We'll talk about that, bunch of other stuff. Miss City Show, go to the podcast. Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.
1 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And we are now at a level 2 out of 5 risk for severe weather today. And the timeline pushed out to 9 o'clock, in between 2 and 9 o'clock, I should say. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Right now in the Philippines, a U.S. military contracted plane has crashed, killing a U.S. military service member and 3 defense contractors. U.S. Indo-Pacific Command says the aircraft had been carrying out intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance support when it went down in a rice field. They did not say what type of aircraft was involved or the cause of the crash. They say it's still being investigated. U.S. forces have been deployed in a Philippine military camp in the country's south for decades and have been to help local forces battle Muslim militants. A federal judge temporarily blocking the Trump administration's buyout offer to federal employees, so tonight's midnight deadline pushed off until Monday. That's when U.S. District Judge George O'Toole Jr. set an afternoon hearing after reviewing a lawsuit by 3 unions, the American Federation of Government Employees, the National Association of Government Employees, and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. They argue that the buyout may be illegal and the government might not follow through after people agree to sign, or rather resign, I should say. More than 40,000 already have. More than 2 million federal employees had faced a midnight deadline to accept that Trump administration buyout offer. And at this morning's National Prayer Breakfast,
I'm signing an executive order to make our Attorney General, who's a great person, she's going to be a great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the head of a task force, brand new, to eradicate anti-Christian bias.
Yeah, it's going to be called the Religious Freedom Commission. The Department of Homeland Security raising new safety concerns about cameras made in China. Aaron Katursky says a bulletin obtained by ABC News shows Homeland Security believes there are tens of thousands of Chinese-made cameras that could gain access to critical U.S. infrastructure networks.
The U.S. has not had success in simply blocking the import of these things because of workarounds that the Chinese have had some success in using. They're called white labeling. In other words, the true manufacturer is sometimes concealed. They'll be packaged in different boxes, shipped through a different entity, and then they end up in the United States. And there are believed to be tens of thousands of them connected to critical U.S. infrastructure.
Here in Middle Tennessee, when the Rutherford County School Board meets tonight, they're going to vote on a resolution to ban DEI practices district-wide. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Last hour, we were talking about chickens. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, don't get them. They're nuts. They're nasty. They're gross. I hear they're racist. Everything is racism. So, look, I want government spending under control as much as anybody. And I like the fact that he's exposing ridiculous things, Elon. Because it's a good thing, right? There's a lot of ridiculous stuff out there that needs to be exposed. And, you know, every day we find something new about this or new about that. But we need to be real about what's going to happen. Because if you think that they're going to chop $2 trillion off, you're fooling yourself. If you think they're going to eliminate all of these things, you're fooling yourself. And even if they did, if you think it's going to help, you're fooling yourself. Because there are three things that are the untouchables. And until you actually address those things, all the rest of it is so small. And I know a lot of people, no, yeah, it's true, kids.
Democrats and the D.C. media are furious about Elon Musk trying to cut government, starting with foreign aid.
Going after U.S. aid? This is so preposterous.
On the campaign trail, Musk talked about government waste.
And the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
Now, Musk has acted fast, but even if he succeeds in killing U.S. aid, that's less than 1% of the federal budget. So can Musk's department really reform our bloated government? More efficient government's been promised before, but it's never, ever happened. Government always grew bigger and less efficient.
Because that's what it does. If government was big and efficient, I'd be okay. If it was. If government was small and inefficient, no, I wouldn't be okay. Efficiency matters. And that includes being able to spend what we make and being transparent with the people. The amount of money we spend, I don't even think as human beings we fathom how much that is. We joked yesterday about the $50 billion that's with the USAID. That fell on the floor. The joke was it wouldn't be worth it for them to pick down, to bend over and pick it up. And the reason? Because it wouldn't be worth it. That's how much money is out there and how much money is being spent. But the elephant in the room is the three biggies. And it sounds like, oh, man, that'd be great to do this and to do that. And it's great to see the way that the money's being used and the insanity that needs to be pointed out. And it doesn't mean we need to waste that money. But if we're serious about cutting, we're going to have to address issues that no politician wants to address.
We're spending $700,000 studying how male parrots attract a female.
And more than $100,000 to study finger snapping. Your government also spent hundreds of thousands of dollars
to study whether Neil Armstrong, when he stepped on the moon, said, one small step for man or one small step for a man.
It's one small step for man.
I don't hear an extra A either, but we paid the National Science Foundation to do that expensive study that concluded ambiguity exists.
Ambiguity exists. I didn't even know he spent that money on all kinds of stuff. That's why I joke about like a juggling duck. I mean, some of this stuff is crazy. And if you know what happens is, you work for a company, company Widget One, right? So Widget One's wants to try something, so they'll apply for a grant. And your field may be, if I can prove ducks can juggle, right? If I can prove that, then that means that I can, we can get them to do things. Yes, Bell.
Sir, you really paint a theater of the mind picture better than anybody.
But if I can prove that, the things that we can maybe get them to do one day that could help us militarily, that's the way they pitch it. And that's what you write it out in your grant. And then they go, okay, here's $700,000.
$10,000 that was given to the Bearded Ladies Cabaret to fund ice skating shows about climate change.
Cut it all. Even if they cut all the silly spending, it won't come close to eliminating our $2 trillion a year deficit. Where are the bigger cuts?
The first thing I would cut, the federal government spends over $1 trillion in subsidies to state and local governments, K-12 school funding, school lunch funding. This is all activity that should be funded by state and local governments and not the federal government.
The feds even pay for junk food.
Taxpayers are funding chocolate bars and candy and cake. State governments have asked to be able to eliminate junk food in their programs.
And they're not allowed to?
They're not allowed to.
How many times have you gone to a fast food restaurant and it says, we take EBT? Or you'll see somebody with an EBT card in front of you, and they've got nothing but junk food in there. That is frustrating. It is. And it's not that I don't want people to get help, but at the same time, it's like, really, this is where it's going? So Doritos and Big Macs? What?
At least now, President Trump is making some cuts. Trump ended DEI programs, told the workers, don't come in. But he's still paying them.
That is very difficult to fire federal workers.
He had a TV show where the punchline was,
you're fired, go.
And they just were. But that's not government.
I think we're going to see major reforms on the federal bureaucracy this time around.
Maybe. Until then, Elon Musk is working around the bureaucracy.
And that's all he's going to be able to do. Because so much of what has to be done, if we're going to address the real issue, has to be done through Congress. And as we all know, they control the purse strings, but they're really not interested in actually solving problems. They like spending money, but they don't want to solve problems. And the problems we don't have enough money in the areas we need it to keep certain things solvent. And those things eat up a vast majority of what goes out.
But even if Trump fired every federal worker, that still wouldn't come close to eliminating our deficit because politicians won't touch the biggest spending.
Unless we are going to talk about Medicare and Social Security reforms, cutting back on government waste is rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
The big one is stuff that goes to old people like me, Medicare and Social Security, which are going broke.
It should be easy to start cutting wealthy people off the program.
But so far, the president says no.
Because it's the untouchables. Somebody just texted in and said they're not going to listen anymore because I'm saying that they should get rid of Social Security and Medicare. No, it's not what I'm saying at all. Another person says, I'm not going to listen anymore because you're pessimistic. No, what did I tell you guys? I will tell you the truth. I'm not going to blow smoke. Truth is, there are things that need to be addressed. And for everybody out there, it's like, what's the fear of any politician? You say, I'm going to cut Social Security or Medicare. Oh, you don't need to cut it. But you need to be honest with the people. It's going to cut itself. So, are you ready for this? Social Security has till 2033 before it's depleted. At that point in time, they'll have to raise some taxes. Even then, you may only get 80% of what you're getting at that point in time. At best. Depleted means down to nothing. We're robbing Peter, Paul, Mary. We've dug them up to rob them. And when it comes to Medicare, 2031. Done. And when it comes to the military, God bless our military. I love the hell out of it. Technology is going to make it smaller, more efficient. But we have contracts to make people who are big donors fat, dumb, and happy. And we sign contracts that are like those ridiculous sports contracts where the first 3 years it looks pretty good, right? But by year 10, the guy's 400 pounds and he can't hit the ball anymore. That's the kind of thing. We're buying stuff at 10 times retail. And in many occasions, once these things go obsolete, we still have a contract and they're still fulfilling them and they're sitting in places and they're never being used. And we're like, well, we hope there's a war that breaks out so we can send some of this crap somewhere. But they're still manufacturing it. We're going to have to do a few things. One, tighten the belt. Two, to keep some of these things solvent, it's an ugly word, taxes. They're going to have to figure out a way to handle that. But nobody will ever tell you the truth about how they have to reform because they need to. Because if we don't reform, we're going to go broke. Politicians, I'm telling you, you know who doesn't want to be president? Anybody in that 2000, like Trump's going to go to 28. If J.D. Vance was to win and he doesn't raise taxes or do something and cut real big, what happens? By 31, Medicare's going to be broke. Everybody's going to be mad. Nobody wants to be in that position. We have to be honest. You guys want transparency, right? Of course you do. Would you like your wife or husband to tell you everything is fine all the time and you're like, yeah, and then all of a sudden you go to the bank one day and there's no more money in there because they spent it all on all kinds of things? You'd be very upset. You have to be transparent. These big three gobble up a vast majority of our stuff. We can cut the $50 billion thing here and the $80 billion thing there, and we can get rid of a lot of the other stuff that you think is all waste, and some of it might be, but it's still not going to touch the giant, huge elephant in the room, which is the big three eat up so much.
Maybe DOGE will change things. Hope so. Today's rules and spending are absurd. Can they be reformed? Chris Edwards says,
it can be done.
I'm skeptical. On the other hand, Donald Trump and Elon Musk sometimes do surprising things.
Take over, Elon. Just take over.
And I hope they do. But when you've got the guardrails that we have, and with Congress being the keepers of the purse, and with the fear, if you're a politician today and you go out there and say, we're going to either have to cut benefits for a certain group of people, you're going to lose. You go out there and say you're going to have to raise taxes if we want to cover this, you're going to lose. So instead, what they do, they don't say a thing and it crashes. They put their heads inside of the sand like a ostrich, which I've never seen except on a cartoon. And, I always joke about, like, because, some of you get mad. My thing is, somebody says you're pro-taxes. I'm honest. Because everybody wants to, let's cut somewhere. Well, we're going to have to cut here. No, that's mine. I don't want you to cut here. Can you cut over there? Well, no, that person said the same thing about you. It's like climate change. Everybody wants to do better by the climate. When you tell them it's going to cost more money, or they're going to have to do something that's going to impact your life, you're like, well, no, I don't want that. Anything but that. And the military industrial complex, I've said it for years, as we become more efficient and more technology driven, yes, we need soldiers, but we don't need obsolete equipment, and we sure in the hell don't need it once it's obsolete. But to address that means you're addressing something that in many places where senators and congressmen and women have very powerful donors who keep them in power because it means profit for them and jobs for their area. Because people don't realize our Congress people that go there, Blackburn and them, their goal is to go there and fight for Tennessee and bring stuff back here that helps the state. So they're competing amongst each other. Nobody wants to lose their piece of the pie, and nobody wants to sacrifice. So if we keep our head buried in the sand, it's still going to come. It's just an honest thing and not pessimistic. Do I think we'll figure out some way to get around it? I would like to think so. I'd like to think as a nation we can have an honest conversation without people losing their mind. And does that mean there's going to be some form of tax? There may be. Does that mean there's going to be some form of cutting in certain areas? Maybe. But if we don't do something, I know one thing for sure, something will happen. It'll work till it doesn't. Oh, yeah, baby. All right, coming up. Happier news. What is that? Oh, you'll see. You'll see. It has to do with Miami. If you've got college-age kids and they're thinking about going there, maybe you're a college-age kid. Yeah, the new reality show is going to tell you not to go there. We'll talk about that. Bunch of other stuff straight ahead. Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. Bulwark Capital. Should call my buddy over there, Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark, and talk to them about what it is that they do, how they differ themselves from all the others that you hear about. We're going to do this, we'll do that. Their thing is they're going to design a plan specifically for you. They're active managers. They don't have a ton of clients. That's not their thing. They want to build a relationship that gets you to where you want to be when it comes to your retirement. It's not a cookie cutter. It's built for you. You get one of these, make it work. They want to give you a second opinion. It's a risk review. They're going to go through your account. They're going to talk to you about it, kind of give you a play-by-play of what they do, risk management, lower risk, lower cost, lower volatility, and how they can give you the most upside potential. Simple and easy to do. Call 866-779-RISK today. That's 866-779-RISK. Talk to them about all the things from risk management to active management. What does that mean? And they'll send you on your way. No hard pressure sale, nothing like that. Just here's a snapshot of where we think we can go with you and your account, and that's it. Call 866-779-RISK today for Bulwark, or go to Know Your Risk Radio. Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC and SEC Registered Investment Advisor. Investments involve risk, not a guarantee. Past performance not guarantee future results. Trek 25103.
All right, drivers, got a crash blocking the right lane in Antioch if you're 24 westbound at Haywood Lane. TDOT reporting a crash there. Also 40 eastbound, left shoulder blocked in West Nashville, 46th Avenue, 51st Avenue, exit 205. U.S. military contracted plane has crashed in the Philippines. The federal employee buyout offer on hold. These stories and more at 1:30. On Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You can take your money. With a twinkle in their eye. Take it all away and give it to some other guy. The government. The government can. And who can tax the sunrise? Who can tax the trees? Let you run a business and collect up all the fees. The government.
That right there is Tim Hawkins, 2011, talking about how much you can get taxed, which is a lot of ways.
Isn't that the truth?
You know, it's, I go back to, was it Reagan on with, was late 70s, early 80s when he was on with Johnny Carson talking about, you know, you go back a few years and you know, $1 was taxed this. By the time you get $1, it's been taxed so many different times, you don't even know which way it's going. Because now everybody wants a piece of something.
Dude, in Arkansas, we lived in Arkansas for 3 years. We were taxed by, we had a municipal tax on our air conditioning unit. You had a state tax, or rather a county tax on the air conditioning unit. State tax on the air conditioning unit.
Really?
Arkansas was that I've lived in several states. That was the most taxed state I'd ever lived in.
And it's, you know, I mean, it's like when I lived in California, you would go and you would look at stuff like you go buy a car battery. You wouldn't even turn the battery into them. They would charge you X amount of dollars for this.
Yes.
For turning. They would charge you for that. They would charge you for this. There's a tax in California that if you sell your stuff and you leave, you get taxed for leaving. I mean,
that should be illegal.
It's nuts. It's crazy. But the problem is there's way too many people who don't understand how taxes work. They don't really feel it or pay it. And they feel that everybody should pay for everybody else. We have gotten ourselves into this hole, and nobody wants to ever talk about how to get out of it. Getting out of this is going to be tightening our belts. And if we continue to not pay attention, we're going to be in big trouble. When people worry about, well, you know, there could be a terrorist here, there might be. There's probably lots of them here. There could be this, there could be that. The biggest threat we have, besides us at each other's throat 24/7 in social media and wacky stuff, the biggest threat is our debt.
Yep.
Because, Jed, come on. What's 36 trillion between friends, man? Don't turn it into a mountain.
And it's you know, and that's like when I'm talking to you guys on text, I don't care that you're mad at me or you say, well, you don't fit the bill. Would you like a doctor to tell you that everything's fine when it's not? Just because it makes you feel good? Is that what you want? Because that ain't me. I'm not going to tell you that. Like, you want your doctor to go, look, you got to do some things. You got to make some changes or else. But so many people just want to hear oh, we can do this. And you're fine with cutting other places that don't affect you. You're fine with raising taxes in other areas it doesn't affect you. But even if we do that, unless we spend it effectively, it doesn't matter. I'm under no illusion. I'm 54. I'm under no illusion I'm ever going to get Social Security or any of that stuff. And the simple reason is because we're going to run out of it by the time if I ever retire. You know, biblically, there's nothing.
Won't.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, why would you? I mean, but we're living longer. When we put so many of these things in place, you retired at 62, you died at 65. That's kind of the way it worked. Now you retire at 62 or 63, you live to be 85. That wasn't on the cards. And when you say, well, we're going to have to raise the age of retirement, people lose their mind. Well, if you're not willing to do anything to fix it, then let it run its course. Like I said, it'll happen till it can't happen anymore. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about spring break. When I was a kid, spring break was rather interesting. Now it's out of control and a big moneymaker, but very out of control. Talk about that, a bunch of other things. It is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.
$1:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we are under a higher risk of severe weather in Middle Tennessee than when we started out this morning. National Weather Service raising it to a level 2, which is still slight, but it is a level 2 out of 5 rather than marginal. And they have extended the window of opportunity for these storms to pop up until 9 o'clock tonight. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. 4 people dead in a U.S. military contracted plane crash in the Philippines. Indo-Pacific Command saying a U.S. military service member and 3 defense contractors were killed during a routine intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance mission. No word on what type of aircraft is involved. No cause of the crash. It is being investigated. Trump administration's federal employee buyout offer on hold until Monday. A federal judge, George O'Toole Jr., set a hearing for Monday afternoon after reviewing a lawsuit by 3 federal employee unions who argue it may be illegal, and they say wants to keep the federal government from reneging on the offer after employees resign. At least 40,000 federal employees have already accepted that offer. And in our nation's capital this morning,
President Trump says he's establishing a presidential commission on religious liberty. And today he'll sign an executive order designating the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, as the head of a task force to eradicate what he says is anti-Christian bias. The president spoke at a prayer breakfast in Washington.
The task force will work to fully prosecute anti-Christian violence and vandalism in our society and to move heaven and earth to defend the rights of Christians and religious believers nationwide.
Here in Tennessee, if you need a blood transfusion, would you care if the donor had a COVID vaccine or not? Hohenwald Republican State Senator Joey Hensley filing a bill that requires blood donors to disclose whether they've had the COVID shot. Similar bills have failed in states like Wyoming, Montana, Connecticut, and South Dakota. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
USS, speaking of weather, keep this number handy because you know you might need it. You know, we were talking a few weeks ago about the snow melting, right? What's it do? It turns into water. If your basement walls are yucky, right? They're not waterproof. Your crawl space not waterproof. Next thing you know, you got mold, you got wood rot, you got all this stuff, and you've got to be smart when it comes to stuff because it only takes one little thing for it to get worse. And when you see a little something, you think, oh, it's not a big deal. But you and I both know the minute you open something up and you realize how bad it is, don't let that happen to you. Call USS if you have any issue whatsoever. First of all, they're going to come out with their inspections. Absolutely free. The other great thing is they're not going to sell you anything that you don't need. If they're saying, hey, you need to do this, it's because you need to do this. No unnecessary crazy repairs. They're there to help, and they guarantee the best. Doesn't matter if your foundations, right? If your yard slip doesn't have the right way the water flows from your home, and when the water's out there, especially if, of course, going to get a little bit tonight, chances are, don't let the weather beat you up. USS is there to help. United Structural Systems, call them today, 615-488-7855, 615-488-7855, or online at USSTN.com.
At least 40,000 federal.
Hey, Bill, Sandra's mad at me because she says I don't have a heart because I feed animals to other animals.
Well, I think a lot of those animals don't have a heart because they eat other animals.
They do. They do. They're not as vegan as we thought. And by the way, I don't feed live. I've never fed live. I don't get off on doing any of that stuff. I know there's some people out there that enjoy it.
You never had any reptiles that required live feeding?
A couple, but but very few.
Yeah, Brian Barchak, who is a famous YouTuber and owns well, he passed away, but his family had a reptile shop, and he would not show live feedings on YouTube. Ever.
No. And it's, but you know what? It's funny because people would be upset, but that's what the animals eat.
And it's how they eat.
It's how they eat. I worked at a reptile place for a very long time when I was younger because that's how I got really into reptiles and stuff. And there would be at least once or twice a month where somebody would bring an animal in that was dying because they wanted it to be, they loved the look of it, but they wanted it to be vegan. And that's not what it is. That's not what it does. And the minute you showed up a mouse or a rat, it would just, that's what it does. I do have a heart. I love animals. But, I'm not going to starve my animal. And it's funny because the same people that get mad, well, do you eat a hamburger? Of course. Well, there you go then. You don't think that's magic, do you? That was once edible.
That grew like a potato.
Oh, good God. I know I don't have a heart. I get it. Well, I'm a ginger, right? What do they say about ginger? We don't have souls.
Yeah, no souls.
No souls. Zero souls, people. Zero souls. Trump, maybe taking the L, maybe not taking the L. Probably going to take an L. There's a pause going on.
The judge's order puts the buyout program on pause at least through Monday, canceling out tonight's deadline for applicants and at least temporarily preventing the administration from moving forward to process those who've already signed up. The White House said more than 40,000 federal workers had already agreed to take the buyout offer, which would see them placed on leave right away, but remain on the federal payroll through the end of September.
So, does this mean I got to come in Monday? Like, I wanted to leave. And what was one of the things they were arguing is they don't think that the government would follow through.
Yeah. Yeah, they think that you'd resign and they'd say, we changed our minds.
That is because Trump does that. Trump's filed bankruptcy all the time. Do you know why Trump's filed bankruptcy? Because, A, it's the smart thing to do. Well, he stiffed people. No, he sets up, like everything, they set up LLCs. So you don't put it under your banner, right? It may be a subsidiary, but it's its own little thing. It will sink or swim on its own. And that way they can file bankruptcy if things go south.
You also have the point that nobody really looks at, that most entrepreneurs, when they try to start a business, they fail multiple times before they hit it big.
Yeah.
You don't just suddenly, I'm going to start a business. Wow, I'm a billionaire. No, you make a lot of mistakes. You learn from those mistakes, and you end up having to declare bankruptcy because you were learning along the way.
Yeah, especially like the businesses he was in. Like the businesses he was in is real estate for a long time was, boom or bust.
And also a lot of those companies that they credit with being his bankruptcies, he was licensing his name to other companies.
Yeah.
And they declared bankruptcy.
And when they talk about like what happened at the casino in Trump Casino, go look at all the other casinos that failed. It wasn't like Trump was the only one that failed. He couldn't even print money. Atlantic City got run into the ground because of wacky laws and crap, and they did that to themselves. So, yes, has he failed? Of course. Every entrepreneur has failed. I failed. Everybody who tries something fails. That's the way it works. And, well, he stiffs people. It stands on its own. If you ever watch you go to the movies and you see all these, brought to you by it'll say a Warner Brothers picture with da-da-da, and then it'll say Moonlight Productions, something or other. That is a one-off thing that everything is funneled into. So if something happens and they get sued, they're suing a company that they can bankrupt, or if it goes sideways, they can bankrupt. It's no big deal. It's a one-off.
Yeah, you're not suing the collective value that actor or that producer or that director have. You're only going to be able to hit them for that one movie.
Yeah, it's I mean, like when they're suing right now for the what was that movie? It was the Western that Baldwin killed that lady in.
Rust.
Yeah, you're not still you're only going to be able to get so much. You're not going to sue every movie executive that was whatever. It is a one-off standalone, and that's the way this works. And it was the same thing with him.
Kevin Smith had a thing going where every time, well, actually, I shouldn't say he had a thing going. It's standard practice. Every time he had a new movie come out, he would establish a brand new production company that was responsible for that movie. So if somebody wanted to sue him, they could only hit him on, say, Jersey Girl. It couldn't be Clerks also, and then Mallrats too.
Well, they should have hit him for Jersey Girl.
Jersey Girl was a phenomenal movie.
That was horrible. It was
a great best performance by Carlin on tape ever.
Just horrible. Who was in that? It was Ben
Affleck, J-Lo.
J-Lo.
That's what caused all the problems with the movie is they broke up right when it was coming out, and it just that and Geely.
Geely was awful too.
It's like, why are you going back to that same well, Ben?
Yeah, because people think that, well, you know why? Because you're working with your friends and you got money and you got to spend it and you think your friend can at least cover this. Well, that didn't happen. Miami. So, and you might remember this, Bill. You and I are about the same age. Same thing with you, Ken. When we were younger, Fort Lauderdale, right? It was always about going to Fort Lauderdale or Palm Springs.
Or Daytona.
Like, those were it. Like, that's where the MTV house was going to be. Yeah. It was always those places. Miami's gotten really big, too, and they're warning people, yeah, stay away.
It looks like the newest reality show.
Miami Beach, here we come.
There's drama.
I'm so sick of crying.
Yelling.
What is your problem?
A hot cast.
Hi, I'm Violet.
My name is Sophia.
My name is Emily.
But it's not a reality show. It's actually a warning to young people not to come to Miami Beach for spring break. And if they do, they'll face a whole bunch of rules and regulations they definitely will not like. The clever public service announcement is a reaction to scenes of chaos like these as thousands of spring breakers descended on Miami Beach.
So I remember, like, I looked it up and I'm like, I want to make sure 350,000 people go to Miami for this. And it's usually, it used to be just like a week, but now it's kind of like all the colleges break at different times. But it's that weird thing where as a business owner and a resident, you don't want any of these people here, especially these young people causing hell and havoc. Yet at the same time, you don't want to lose their money because that helps.
It's the second year in a row that the city has launched an anti-spring breaker PR campaign. Last year's push was called, "We're Breaking Up with Spring Break."
Last year, I remember I was there and Ocean Drive was very unspring break-like.
You didn't have any of the lawlessness that we had seen in prior years, and we're fully anticipating a smooth and fun, clean spring break.
Boo. Don't you want fun? I want crazy. I remember during the pandemic, what was it? Florida and Texas were like the only thing open, and people just went out there and they cut loose. Because when you're cooped up, that's what you do. And so they're telling everybody, don't come here and do that, or else. I saw some of the parking tickets they're talking about not just doubling, tripling, some of like $500, $600.
The fake reality show starts off with these spring breakers anticipating a great and wild time.
I'm here to have the best spring break ever.
But as spring break reality check unfolds, the very rules are revealed.
Once we got to Miami Beach, things went downhill fast.
They're busted for drinking and other violations.
You're drinking in public, that's not allowed. The speaker, that's not allowed.
It didn't get better when they went out at night.
This saying expect curfew.
At the end of the video, the rules are spelled out. Expect $100 parking tickets, curfews, heavy police presence, security checkpoints, and DUI enforcement.
Come here, have a great time. You will have a great time if you play by the rules and obey the law, but you will not have a good time, and you will face the consequences if you come here looking to break our laws.
So if you're thinking about going there, and I know Bell's like, man, I think I'm going down to Miami. I got a flamethrower and I got some Jägermeister. I think we're going to do this.
Tequila.
Tequila.
When my last 3 years of high school, I lived in just north of Orlando, and we would actively avoid those tourist areas when spring break came up. We would go to completely different beaches that nationally weren't really well known, so we could just go hang out and have fun in peace without all the tourism.
Which is a smart thing to do. But if you're dependent upon tourism, I mean, it's one of those things where, like Miami, all these places have sunshine. There's tourists all year long. But there are certain times of the year where you feel it, and you got these kids coming down, and they're flush with cash because mom and dad's handing them money or whatever, and they want to spend it. But you don't want them breaking stuff. You don't want them jumping up and down. You don't want the nudity everywhere and the fights. Oh, my Lord.
Wait. Just, can we backtrack on the nudity, please? I'm all right with that.
You know what? I don't want to get yelled at by it. So that was Bell that said that, not me.
Just making a suggestion.
I'm already in trouble because I fed animals to other animals. Oh, it's not very nice. Speaking of whiskey, did you see what the president of Colombia said? He was talking about cocaine. He said cocaine's no different than whiskey.
Well, drugs in general a drug is a drug, pretty much.
Yeah. But he's
alcohol
trying to
can kill you.
A bump here and there is not a big deal. Some yayo.
And if you want to ingest that stuff, government shouldn't be telling you not to, but you should make damn sure that before you start doing it, that you realize you have to own the responsibility of the results.
Yeah, and we've taken that away. When you see, like we're going to do it next week. We're going to talk about pot for potholes that they're suggesting here, and when you see what happens with cities and states that go wrong because they've said, well, drugs, we're not going to enforce any of this. They tell the people, you don't have to have any more responsibility. In Europe, the places that they've allowed this to happen, like Portugal and stuff, you have 100% responsibility. You can be forced into a drug rehab. You can be arrested. Where a lot of these places, they've just decided, no, that's a lifestyle choice, which is, again, insane, and that's why it doesn't work. And I'm interested about the pot for potholes because we have potholes.
You really?
Yeah, we got a lot of them, by the way.
Man, I've lived here a huge chunk of my life. I've never seen one. You just moved here. You found them already?
Yeah, well, they found me.
Oh,
they found.
And this is coming from a man who walks to work.
Yeah, even when I walk to work and I wander down the street, there are several potholes I have to avoid when I cross the street because there's no crosswalk because they're doing work in certain areas. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, this is insane. And I want to make sure that if we do pot for potholes, that the money goes to the right place. Because so often what happens in politics, they put the money in a giant slush fund and we'll get you later. And they never seem to get you later. Oh, my Lord. So much stuff. Man, it's one of those days we talk about all kinds of wacky stuff. And serious. We should do some serious stuff next hour. I'll try to be serious, I promise, guys. Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 997. Rough Greens wants you to do a 90-day challenge with them. So if you guys know what Rough Greens is, I've talked about it. They've got Meow Greens and Rough Greens. This is for your dog. You want to avoid the vet. You want to give your dog a better, healthier life. Rough Greens wants you to try their 90-day challenge. First, you go to roughgreens.com. Use my code CHAD. Now, when you do, they're going to get you a bunch of this bag that's got Rough Greens in it. It's got enzymes, all this living stuff inside of it that's really going to help your dog in a major way. It's just a powder supplement. You put it right on top of your dog's food. That's all you have to do. That's where your bit ends. They'll eat it. After 30 days, shinier coat, more energy. After 60 days, their coat is not only going to be full and shiny, you're not going to see their coat falling out. They're going to be moving much better. And after 90 days, it's like having a new dog. Better heart health, so many things. Try a Jumpstart trial bag today of Rough Greens. All you have to do is cover the cost of shipping and take their 90-day challenge. Go to roughgreens.com, use my code CHAD, RUFFgreens.com, use code CHAD.
A federal judge has blocked the Trump administration's federal employee buyout program for now. We'll tell you about that and other top stories coming up at 2 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Pot for potholes, man.
I saw that.
They're just going to put pot in the potholes. My car is so high.
What a waste. That's a waste.
That's a waste, man. You guys want to
can't get my tires to align.
My car's going slow, man. Tell you what. Are they voting tonight on the DEI thing?
Yeah, I believe that is scheduled tonight in the Rutherford County School Board meeting.
And what exactly? Because I've seen so many conflicting. Why do we have to vote on this? It's not a state thing. Why are we voting on it?
Well, there's one board member who wants to just go ahead and ban it outright. He doesn't want it to ever happen. There's not currently, according to reports, Rutherford County Schools does not have a DEI policy. This board member wants to make sure they never have a DEI policy, but other board members want the state to move on schools not having DEI policies first.
Okay. Just it's very fascinating the way that everybody wants to get ahead of stuff or make noise. Remember Andy Ogles was like, we should allow Trump to have a third term. And Trump's like, shut up. I don't want to do 3 of these. I don't like you, Andy. Silly name. Everybody virtue signals in some way, shape, or form, it's only the left. No, the right can do it too. It's a different kind of signal, but everybody's got their signal. And no, I'm not a fan of DEI. And they go and a lot of other places, they don't call it diversity, equity, and inclusion. They call it something else. They call it kinder learning, or it's all the same. It's this or it's that. Teach kids about equality and teach kids about equity. They're not the same. I want you to have a fair shot. And that doesn't mean you're going to get a fair shot. I'm never going to lie to you guys. If you think that everybody in the world gets an actual fair shot, no. Some people don't get the same thing. They got to climb up a different mountain. Other people, they don't even start on third base. They're crossing home plate. And other people, they have to go to bat without a bat. But doesn't mean you can't make it around. So, but it's getting up to the plate. It's getting the opportunity. The equity side of it, as I was explaining to my little one is, and I did it with the toys and stuff. It's no, you everybody doesn't get this because you did better or they did better. You shouldn't get the same thing in that. Now, when you're 6, again, you're explaining it to a 6-year-old. But it's about, and adults don't understand. It goes back to, and this is a huge problem with the left. They are horrible at reading a room, and they are awful at figuring out how to explain things to people that you would think would make sense. Let's defund the police. What they should have said, if they were serious, is we need to reimagine the way that policing is done so we can help the police better get through things without worrying about being shot, and at the same time make the community in which they're serving feel better. And that, okay, I could have gotten behind something like that, but you went with defund. If you would have said this is about, diversity and opportunity, okay. Instead, you said equity. Equity is we're all getting the same thing. The outcome is already predetermined. You've sold this wrong. But I expect that, man. They're just like right now, the hill they're dying on with this USAID is so stupid. This is the wrong hill if you're planning on planting a flag and saying this is it. Because every day you turn around, it's some other wacky thing that they're rolling out. And people are going, yeah, I don't care about that. That's a stupid thing. And you trying to protect it is stupid. Mm-hmm. Oh, my Lord, kids. Talk a little book banning. We'll also have to explain to them the difference between banning books and restricting certain things. Words matter, people. Words matter. Speaking of words, if you don't follow us and grab all of our stuff, you know what? Pointing at you. There we go. Do it. Shame.
Shame. Shame.
Oh, kids.
Two o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And the National Weather Service increasing the risk of severe weather for Middle Tennessee tonight. We've gone from marginal to slight, which is a 2 out of 5 risk. And they've extended the window between now and 9 p.m. Full forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Stephen Portnoy in our nation's capital has the new development on the federal employee buyouts.
In a brief hearing, Boston-based federal judge George O'Toole ordered a pause on tonight's deadline to give both the Trump administration and its opponents more time to craft their arguments. The judge directed the government to send emails to all eligible employees, advising them that the buyout is now on ice pending the next hearing on Monday afternoon. At last check, the White House said more than 40,000 federal workers had decided to take the offer, meaning they'd immediately be placed on leave but remain on the payroll through the end of September.
At this morning's prayer breakfast, President Trump announced Attorney General Pam Bondi to head up the Religious Freedom Commission that he will sign an executive order to form, he says, to eradicate what he calls anti-Christian bias.
The mission of this task force will be to immediately halt all forms of anti-Christian targeting and discrimination within the federal government, including at the DOJ, which was absolutely terrible, the IRS, the FBI, terrible, and other agencies.
And Karen Travers reports on the suggestion that America take over Gaza.
A different message from the president on social media. He posted no soldiers by the U.S. would be needed as part of his plan to take over Gaza by the United States. This is notable because that first night when he announced this, he did say that U.S. troops could be used if necessary. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said that the president had not committed to using U.S. troops. Now we're hearing today from him something more definitive.
Here in Nashville, Metro Police say a Canadian neo-Nazi protester who was free on bond stemming from his arrest last July 14th on a felony aggravated assault charge for using a flagpole to attack a downtown bartender has been rearrested. Detectives say 29-year-old Ryan Scott McCann of Ontario had attacked a 20-year-old Jewish man in a parking lot, kicking him twice the night before the flagpole attack. McCann, who police have identified as being part of the Goyim Defense League anti-Semitic hate group, was arrested downtown yesterday where he works as a painter. He's been on an ankle monitor since last July and prohibited from leaving Davidson County under the conditions of his bond. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
In honor of the 47th president, 47% off non-surgical spinal decompression. It's the big 47 offer right now at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Ashley, they're there to help you. There's no pills, no spinal creams that open up the spinal disc. I mean, this is the way, you know, like they're not getting shots. They're not doing any of that stuff. And by the way, if you need surgery, the beauty of Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley, who are the best of the best, they'll tell you. They'll tell you that. But you don't have to worry about any of that. During your consultation, right, so you're going in there, you're going to get an exam, right, x-rays included, if needed, or you can bring an MRI report. They're going to show you what it is that they do. They're going to get you comfortable, and then they're going to start working on you. And they've got the best stuff in the business. It is incredible. And you walk in there, you're like, oh, my goodness. They're going to take care of you, and they're going to get you back to feeling great. Don't let 2025 be another year where your back and your knee and everything else hurt. Get over to the Wellness Institute of Nashville today. Start your new year off with a pain-free life. Yes, it's possible. The big 47 offer going on right now. Call the Wellness Institute of Nashville today, 615-246-5009, or go to painisbad.com. Thunderstruck. Yeah, Thunderstruck. I watched an interview with them the other night talking about what AC/DC means and how it was their sister that kind of came up with it. They were trying to think of a name, and she pointed to the AC on down there because she was sewing. And they said, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Remember when you were a kid, it was like, was it Antichrist, Devil Child?
Yes. Yeah. And KISS was Knights in Satan's Service.
That's right. Yeah, there's a movie on Netflix now about the satanic panic in the 80s.
Boy, it was huge.
Yeah. Do you remember how it started?
I do not.
The McMillan trial. Do you remember the McMillan trial?
Was that the trial with Judas Priest?
No, that was not. The McMillan trial was about it was a huge trial. Anthony, we were talking about, what's his name? The kid that played E.T.
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas starred in it. But it was about a preschool where the kids started making up things about the teachers touching them and doing all these things. The McMartin trial, that's what it's called. And it was all about Satan, and they actually sacrificed a kid. And when they got to trial, the kids they broke down. They were just lying.
Wow.
But it ruined everybody's life, but it was all about Satan.
They were saying whatever the investigator wanted. They said whatever it made the investigator happy.
Absolutely. And then that started the satanic panic. And then everything went from there. But the Julie Bowden, whatever her name is, from Modern Family, she stars in a movie, and I think it's called Hysteria, and it's about the satanic panic in the 80s and how they needed to, change all the record labels and whatnot.
Oh, wow. You remember the stories about how if you ran Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven backward, it was a message from Satan.
What I always loved was during that Judas Priest trial, the whole concept that the prosecution was trying to create was that they were using backwards messages to influence these kids to commit suicide, which is a horrible business model. But they, during Rob Halford's deposition, or when he was testifying, they said, "Have you ever used backwards messages on your music?" And he was like, "Yeah." Just like a painter uses a different color paint, it was just to cause a vocal effect. But suddenly, that was supposed to be him admitting, yeah, of course we're in league with Satan.
Yeah.
And, during the, because remember, then everything got dragged up to Tipper Gore and everything.
Oh, yeah, Tipper Gore.
Like right after Al invented the internet, she went straight up there and she wanted to get everything banned. And he even said, I watched him on an interview the other day, Rob Halford. He was saying, look, I completely understand that a lot of lyrics in a lot of different music, no, it wasn't meant for kids. Kids gravitated towards it, but putting a restriction on some of it was, I didn't see a problem with that. It was the fact that they were interpreting everything to be nothing but evil.
Well, that, and parents cannot abdicate their responsibility of being aware of what their children are doing.
Yeah.
Whether it's music, food, their time, whatever the case may be.
Very true. Amen. And that brings us to words. Ladies and gentlemen, words matter. Banning restricting two separate things.
Are books being banned in the United States? According to a recent announcement by the U.S. Department of Education under President Trump, the answer is no. The Civil Rights Division of the DOE announced that it was dismissing nearly a dozen complaints of book bans, calling those efforts part of a book ban hoax. Civil rights and First Amendment groups were quick to respond. PEN America, a nonprofit that promotes human rights and literature, issued a graphic that simply said, "It's not a hoax."
It is a hoax. It's absolutely a hoax. There are books that if I read on the air today, I would be fired. There are books out there, and we're not talking about books that are, we're not talking about, Hollywood Wives. That'd be great. There's a flashback to the 80s. We're not talking about that, right? This isn't Penthouse Forum. We're talking about stuff that kids shouldn't be reading. And the thought, and like I said, the difference between banning and restricting. And I don't think people get that. And this is, again, goes back to the parents, as Belle was just saying, who seem to have abdicated stuff and wanted, the nanny state to come in and do things. Well, if you want your kid to read something and you feel strongly enough about it, that's a you thing. But it shouldn't be available to everybody.
They are absolutely not a hoax. Book bans are real.
Casey Meehan from PEN's Freedom to Read program told Inside Edition Digital.
Our most recent reporting shows that since 2021, there have been over 16,000 instances of book bans happening in public school library and public school classroom libraries. And honestly, we know this is an undercount.
In the DOE statement, Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Craig Traynor, said in part that the department is beginning the process of restoring the fundamental rights of parents to direct their children's education.
So to see this kind of language come from the U.S. Department of Education is alarming and is certainly dismissive of all those students, again, who have that lived experience of navigating censorship happening within their own school libraries and classroom libraries.
It's not censorship. And if you want censorship, the same people that are telling you this are the same people that said, well, you can't have those words in Huck Finn. You can't say those things. We're going to have to edit some of that stuff out because it's going to hurt. Well, hold on a second. This is what's in there. Isn't that someone's lived experience? This is the crap that they talk about, and words matter. Banned means you can't see it. There was a book called Mein Kampf. You couldn't get it up until a few years ago in Germany. It was really banned. Didn't matter if you were 40 or 4, you weren't going to see it.
As for what kinds of books have been challenged the most, Meehan says there are 3 general categories.
Our research shows that, overwhelmingly books that have LGBTQ plus characters are challenged and removed from access. Books that have characters of color or books that talk about race and racism, and increasingly books that have any sort of depictions of sex or sexual experiences. This also, we see this happening as well with books that have sexual assault or sexual violence in them as well.
The new administration's policy will make it easier to challenge and remove titles from schools and libraries, and ultimately make it more difficult for students to access them.
I mean, look, they've all got phones so they can see whatever they want to see. So that's one thing. But how about this? Let's just say we take some of these sexually violent, very descriptive books, and instead of you trying to say, oh, the kid only got it, this person had, why don't we show it for the entire class? We'll make it a movie, and we'll see how parents like that. They won't. And yes, do I think there are people out there who, are starting to become a little bit like Footloose, right? Where they're burning all kinds of books now, they don't even care. Yes, there are some people that like everything. You give people an inch, they're going to do everything they can to take more. But when you're talking about the genderbread man, but you're talking about a lot of this insane stuff where if I read it on the air, if I did, I'd be fired. We wouldn't have enough dump button to dump. When you see these people who go and they read it before the school board and the school board looks uncomfortable, I'm sorry, a 14-year-old shouldn't read that. Even if there's a lived experience, which is why is a 14-year-old living any of these experiences? So they talk about it being banned and being censored. It's not. And there are books out there that are censored, and many of them are censored because of, well, it's unsensitive to people. We had to change the words in the play because it would make people uncomfortable. We talk about movies they can't make anymore. I don't know how many times, at least once a week, I see Danny McBride or Robert Downey Jr. or somebody saying, oh, there's no way we can make Tropical Thunder Day or Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, Blazing Saddles especially.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way we could do that. Why? That's art, isn't it? Well, yeah, but it's different because it would hurt somebody's feelings or what. That's the insanity of which the left has their mindset. If you restrict it from your 8-year-old reading it, somehow that's banning it. No, when they're 18, if they want to read it still, knock yourself out. But it's not about that. Remember, this is all about the activism, like when we see with the trans movement, because the trans movement is not really about trans. In many cases, it's about activism. If you have a organization, right, you got your 501(c), and your goal was to get marriage equality, well, you got it. Well, now what? You're not going to shut the doors. No, we're not going to do that. Well, now we're going to move on to the next thing. So you're always doing something like that. And this is just another one of those things. And then they feel they've got a great playground with kids. And they're finding out, no, they don't. They don't. They don't have that great playground. That's why kids are being homeschooled more. Or they're going to private schools where parents have more of an understanding of what's going on in the curriculum. And the worst thing to happen for teachers during the COVID world was, in many cases, people got to see what their kids were doing in school. They got a firsthand knowledge of, wait a minute here. No, my mom, so a little snapshot. So my sister had a lot of issues. God bless her. I wish her all the best. But so she had a whole bunch of kids, right? And I mean, like a lot of kids. And so my mother's adopted. So my mother and aunt have, I've got little sister that's getting married next month. I'm going out there. But I've got a little brother who's 13. I got another little brother who's 14. And when he was, so the youngest one went to a Christian private school and they never missed a day. They just kept going. My other ones were all in regular school. They had to do it from the house. And my mother heard what the 14-year-old was reading. At the time, he was like 11, 12, what he was getting in class about BLM and about all of this other stuff. And she said to the teacher, we're done here. This is nothing to do with reading and writing and learning. He has trouble with all that stuff. And you guys are teaching him about social justice. He doesn't need that. And the education has become that new battlefield. But when you hear stuff like it's being banned, it's not. You can go on Amazon and order it. You could go to a regular library and grab it. Bring it home. But you're not going to let your kid go see a rated R movie. I'm not taking my, 6-year-old and dropping her off going, hey, go have fun for seeing this rated R movie. Because they wouldn't allow it. It's the same thing. It's about understanding maturity and age. And yes, the internet's out there, so there's a lot of bad things. They don't need any of that. We recognize that. And when we were younger, we didn't have the internet. We had National Geographic. And anytime we saw somebody that were boobs, we didn't matter that they were in the middle of nowhere. Everybody did it, so
Didn't
let's
care
not
if
pretend.
they were a little droopy.
Yeah. Come on, we all did it. So everybody just don't act high and mighty on that.
I just watched Cinemax.
Oh, that was great, right? Like your parents went to bed. And you're like, oh, yeah, we're doing this now, aren't we? Vampire cop boob dragon. Nightshade. Oh, it is the Chad Benson Show. Super Talk 99.7. Prize Picks, they're doing something for you, kids. Are you ready for this? You're thinking, okay, Chad, what's Prize Picks? So you go download the app, Prize Picks. fantasy.com, and you get your you can grab it right on their Google or Play or wherever you go, and you download the app. Now this is fantasy; it's daily. They're already giving you one portion of the win for the Super Bowl, the big game, whatever you want to call it. What is that? Do you think that Patrick Mahomes is going to throw for more than half a yard? There's one of your wins. Now you pick another one. Oh, that's simple. That's a lineup. 2 people, boom. And the way they work it is it more or is it less? Over or under? That's simple. It's fantasy done in a different way. Great opportunity for you to win. And how about this? $50 immediately when you place your first $5 lineup. So you go, you set your lineup, you play it, boom, $50 right to you. But you've got to use my code Chad. Prize Picks. Do it now. You got your first win. Check back, though, just in case things happen. If he doesn't play or something like that, you want to make sure the line stays there. But right now, the free square for you essentially is your first win. Will Patrick Mahomes get more than a half a yard passing? I'm going to go with yes. Set your lineup. Get $50 free right now when you play first $5. Prize Picks. Run your game.
.24 eastbound, right before Whites Creek Pike in Jolton. Drivers, we've got police on the scene of an accident, and federal employees no longer under a deadline to accept a buyout from the Trump administration at midnight tonight. We'll tell you about it at 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I think they'd like some clarification, kind of whether or not they have to come in anymore, because they were really looking forward to not coming in. How bummed would you be if you're like, hey, the union tells you got to get back to work? Aw.
Yeah, well, especially if you're among the 40,000 who have already accepted the buyout.
Yeah.
Because, you probably are close to retirement or whatever. You're thinking, all right, man, I'm done.
Which is, the way that they've pitched it is the unions have argued and stuff is you may not get paid.
Right.
They're going to take everything away from you.
Yeah, they're going to renege.
That's, again, ridiculous, but that's how they're pitching it. And that's why I said, when it comes to all of this stuff that, you want to see happen, I want to see it happen too, but I'm also a realist where there are laws in place. The unions have big protection, and, they're feeling like they're going to try to force our people out or force these people to do this. You don't have to take the buyout. I was watching CNN the other night. And who's the guy we want to have on? What's his name? Is it the name?
Brad Palumbo.
Yeah, Brad Palumbo. And he was on there. He was supposed to come on this week, but he couldn't. And we're going to try to get him on for next week. But he was on there, and they were talking about the buyout. And, they were talking about how these people, they were making it seem like these people are all being forced out. It was either you take the 8 months and your pension and all that stuff, and you leave, or you're fired and you get nothing. No. Well, they sent all the stuff to the FBI and CIA. They said they weren't, but they did. Okay. And what did they say? I don't know. They got till tomorrow. So are they fired otherwise? No. They could just say no. And then what happens? Then they go back to work. That's what happens. They go back to work. So you're not forced to do any of these things, even though they make it seem like you are forced to do some of these things. Yesterday, Donald Trump, that's his name, President of the United States, 47.
We're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
The NCAA is going to get on, board with it. The NCAA caught a lot of heat. Was there 1,000 trans athletes? No, there wasn't. There's a few high-profile athletes, Leah Thomas being one, but there wasn't a ton. But that still didn't matter. We needed to be honest about the fact that it wasn't fair and that this wasn't a, Tuesday night softball league or an indoor soccer league, and your work is put together a team and it's co-ed. It wasn't fair. And it's not about hating people who are transgender. It's about, let's be honest. And honesty looks like this. Men are stronger. Men are faster. Men are bigger. Men are more athletic. Men will dominate. That's it. It's not even like the fact that anybody could even look you in the face and tell you, honestly, that's not true. I remember McEnroe when they asked if Serena's the greatest, if she's the GOAT. And he's all, no. I think he said Djokovic or Federer. And that caused a big stir. And they, were all over McEnroe about that. And McEnroe, he went and defended himself. He said, no, I'm not going to take it back because she's not. The greatest beats everybody, period. And why can't she be the greatest? She is the greatest female tennis player of all time. But she's not the greatest player of all time because there's somebody else that can beat her. And she recognized that. Her and her sister, when their careers were first taken off, they'd won some tournaments. They played a warm-up practice. There was a guy that was at a tournament they were at, and they played him. And he was like ranked in 100 and something. And he beat him 6-1, 6-love, something like that. Somebody you've never heard of. She talked about it that, hey, when she was at the height of her game, if I played Andy Murray, who was, I think, Wimbledon champion that year, she goes, he would beat me in 15 minutes. That's not to, and the problem was when you ask silly questions, so you ask a silly question like that, you have to defend the fact that, look, I'm not going to lie to you and say that she's the greatest, right? That's because she's not. She can't beat anybody in the top 100. This just wasn't going to happen. Probably not even top 500. But she's the greatest for her. But somehow now, because you've asked this weird trap question, hoping for an answer that will be woke and in line with whatever weirdness is out there, you have to diminish what she's done. She was so dominant. I would watch her play and I think to myself, it's not fair. It isn't. She was so amazing. But you have put everybody in a situation, and they do that with all sports because they want this to be this certain way. Well, live in reality. And reality says, no, that's not true. But she was amazing. Oh, she crushed souls. She did. I'd watch her. I'm like, yes, she's killing people out there. She is. She was amazing. And she shouldn't have to diminish what she's done. Coming up, talk a little bit about the Doge. The Doge. And not all Democrats like Democrats anymore. And some of them are saying, I'm out. We'll talk about that as well. It is Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. National Weather Service has increased the risk for severe weather in Middle Tennessee between now and 9 o'clock tonight. We're at a level 2 out of 5, which is still slight, but still something we'll have to be aware of. Keep an eye on, if you will. Got the full forecast in 5 minutes. Federal employees are no longer under a deadline tonight to accept a buyout from the Trump administration.
The judge's order puts the buyout program on pause at least through Monday, canceling out tonight's deadline for applicants and at least temporarily preventing the administration from moving forward to process those who've already signed up. The White House said more than 40,000 federal workers had already agreed to take the buyout offer, which would see them placed on leave right away, but remain on the federal payroll through the end of September.
Stephen Portnoy reporting at this morning's National Prayer Breakfast.
I'm signing an executive order to make our Attorney General, who's a great person, she's going to be a great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the head of a task force, brand new, to eradicate anti-Christian bias.
He's calling it the Religious Freedom Commission. And when the Rutherford County School Board meets tonight, they're going to vote on a resolution to ban DEI practices district-wide. Some say that's not necessary since the district is already DEI-free. Here's board member Caleb Tidwell.
I've been told that Rutherford County is not implementing this practice, but since we're not implementing it, I think it's best to do away with it in case it were to be brought up in the future.
Yeah, another board member said they'd rather wait to see what happens on the state level. And the Canadian neo-Nazi protester who was free on bond stemming from his arrest last July for attacking a downtown bartender with a flagpole has been rearrested on new charges. Police say the night before the flagpole incident, 29-year-old Ryan Scott McCann of Ontario, they identify as being a member of the anti-Semitic hate group Goyim Defense League, had antagonized and kicked a 20-year-old Jewish Clarksville man in a parking lot. McCann has been wearing an ankle monitor and prohibited from leaving Davidson County since the flagpole attack. He was arrested yesterday downtown where he works as a painter. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Guess what, kids? If you got HVAC issues, not anymore, thanks to Busy Bee. You got plumbing issues? Not anymore, thanks to Busy Bee, because they're busy and they're out there helping you. They're not going to put you in anything crazy. They're not going to come out there and, oh, you need to do this, this, and this. They're going to come out there. They're going to give you an honest assessment. They're going to take care of a job like no tomorrow. That's what Busy Bee is all about. They got tons of deals going on right now. Everything from, hey, maybe you're going to do a whole house repipe, or maybe you can do a few different things. They got water shutoffs. They got all kinds of great deals, including $250 off a Smart Auto home hole water shutoff. And how about this? Tankless water conversions, they got all kinds of deals for that as well. Maybe your HVAC, you got some problems, or you just need a package where you get the air duct cleaned out every once in a while. They've got deals for that, including if you buy, there's 3 different packages. You buy the middle one, you get the big super deluxe one at the same price. Don't waste your time other places. It's all about going to the right place. And check out the famous Beehive Club as well. Call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling today, especially if you have any issues. And do that before you have issues, even if you're worried. 775-7833. 775-7833. Or visit busybeehvac.com. Birch Gold, protect yourself in the inevitable what-if scenario, because it will happen. But how do you protect yourself just in case it's zombie apocalypse time? That's what Birch Gold wants to show you. Why gold's important to have as a what-if kind of backing and in case of emergency. Gold has been used for a gazillion years and will continue to be so. It's real, it's tangible, it's touchable. That's why people like it. And it's a great way to hedge yourself in case of inflation. We've got a weakening dollar. We can go on and on. Birch wants to show you what they can do for you, how they can help you out. Even with your IRA and 401k, you can transfer it over and get it backed by gold at no cost to you. I want you to text the word Benson to 989898 today. They're going to get you out an investor kit as well as the ultimate guide to gold in the Trump era with a forward done by Don Jr. Doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time, no high-pressure sales, simple and easy. Text the word Benson to 989898 today for Birch Gold. Man, you start talking about satanic panic. People start going, oh, yeah, I remember that. That was a big deal.
I was just telling Bell, I saw an interview with Buck Dharma, and the interviewers, asked, what were some of the regrets that Blue Oyster Cult had over the years, and he said that everybody thought we were Satanists. And they weren't.
No.
They just, he says, we like vampires. They sing about vampires.
I don't get, it's somebody, that's what somebody said about me. Only you, Chad, could put vampire cop boob dragon into a sentence. That was Skinamax. But yeah, sometimes it's just dark. They enjoy it, right? Like, I love horror. I'm the bubbliest bounce. I'm like Tigger. I'm all over the place. I'm happy. I love horror movies. I've always have.
Why does nobody accuse John Carpenter of being a Satanist?
Because if you met him.
But it's just the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah.
He's no more a Satanist than Gene Simmons is.
No. Gene's Jewish, by the way, for those who are not keeping score.
Yeah. And he knows how to make money.
He does. He's a businessman. But because people put people back in, well, we do that now. We put people in boxes, especially people that maybe scare us and we don't understand, who are, that's the fear. That's the thing about fear. Like, you're different. I don't know what you're all about. So I like this, and you may be different than that. You could be better, but I don't know because you're different. I'm going to put you in a box. And the box is you're evil, you're bad, you're Satan, you're this. And it's, it's crazy how, Alice Cooper is a perfect example. That way, for those of you guys don't know, very religious.
Oh, man.
Was raised by a preacher and went through his whole phase where he was an alcoholic and a drug addict. And now, if you give him the opportunity, he will readily tell you he's a born-again Christian.
Yeah. He loves that. He talks about it all the time, talks about coming to Jesus, talks about God, talks about all of that stuff. And it's a show. It's part of the thing. It's what he does. It's a show.
It's a horror movie in play form almost, with a soundtrack that he sings.
Exactly. But that's what we do now. You know what else we do? We talk about a guy by the name of Elon Musk. And Elon is going through people's data. I heard today that he's inside people's data. He's been inside people's underwear drawer. That's what they've got him. He is the boogeyman.
Speaking of waste.
Folks we don't know anything about. Looking at potentially all of our personal information, all of the money flows that go out of Treasury. The banking committee needs to bring up the Doge folks who are illegally in Treasury and have them testify.
Woo! You're mad at the messenger who's bringing you the message that said, hey, you guys are spending money on stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Who was the guy that was just talking?
Oh, God, that one was, hold on here, that was Sean Casten.
Does he ever complain about the NSA and their warrantless spying?
No, he didn't.
No, why would we do that?
No.
Because he voted for...
Of course, they all did. They all did. They all voted for stuff that you and I would be appalled with. They're mad at Facebook for getting your data, but they're not mad at themselves for allowing themselves to get it. And when they say we don't do that, what they really mean is we don't take your data, but we do buy it from Facebook.
The headline is that Musk has your data. that Musk has control of the systems. As a Treasury appointee, that is unfathomable.
He doesn't. None of that is true. He doesn't have control of anything. He can't change code. He can't do anything. I think 2 people are allowed to look at certain things, but he can't flip a switch and take away grandma's paycheck. Oh, we'll get to that in a second.
We are introducing the Taxpayer Data Protection Act to shield the American people from this out-of-control power grab permanently.
Is it permanently?
You know what I want to know? If that's it, when that bill is written, I want to see who they exempt.
True. That's good. That's good. I like that. But he gives Donald Trump something he has never had before. And it's not this, this crazy power. He, first of all, I gave him $250 million to help him get elected. So you're going to let him run around for a little bit. But it's not some weird, he gives Donald Trump all this extra love on Twitter, which he does. But he gives Donald Trump something that's more important. He gives him another person to stand next to and take arrows. These people are out there complaining. Rarely do I hear them talk about Donald Trump. Once in a while, they say, he said he was going to be a dictator on day one. Then it's all about Elon Musk. It's all about Elon Musk. Because Elon's bad and evil. And if you were to go to the Democrat convention and they were able to get through all the rules, and you say, all right, guys, we need to cast somebody as a horrible, worst person ever, a monster, if you will. And they're like, all right, what does he have to be? He's got to be white. Oh, absolutely. I want him to be opaque. I want him to be see-through. I want him to be able to haunt a house. Well, there's Elon. And if he could be from South Africa, but spend most of his time here, but still enough that we could say he's part of apartheid, that'd be great too. Like he actually, make it so it seems like his family helped put away Nelson Mandela. Okay, he's got to be straight. And most importantly, he has to be wealthy. Wealthy. And they're like, we have a guy for you. This is his name. It's Elon Musk. And then they run around screaming about the evil that he's doing while exposing a lot of silly stuff. And look, this is all, silly. It's all wacky. It's crazy. I mean, I just saw something that I'm checking on right now because I believe this cannot be true. And I'll tell you about it in a second because I'm still checking on it because I do that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times because I'm thinking to myself, this can't be true, this insane stuff we spend money on. And the money he's exposing that we're spending on, which we all know is ridiculous, it's not changing anything. I mean, as far as how much debt we're in, all of this stuff, it's great that he's getting rid of it, but it's such a small thing. It's like going down to the ocean with a Dixie cup and scooping out some water and thinking you're making a difference while it's raining. That's how big and bloated the government is, and we refuse to have a conversation about the things that need to be done. But he is the boogeyman, and they're loving every second of it. The problem is, for the Democrats, where they picked that hill to die on is a hill that most Americans look and go, you're spending how much money on a puppet show in the Middle East to talk about gender issues? Yeah, no, we don't think that's a good idea. You're sending how many condoms to the Taliban? And we're paying for that after we gave him billions of dollars worth of weapons? No. The stuff that they're getting behind and trying to make this big thing about that they're doing this, A, they're fighting for government, they're not fighting for the people, and B, it's falling on deaf ears because when you talk about this stuff, as you try to defend it, the average person looks and goes, no, I don't think we should spend $8 million, this is the thing I was talking about, to study whether or not lesbians and bisexuals have a different response to opioids. Are they not human? What's the response that you thought that they were going to get? This is the insanity that's out there. Speaking of that, Chris Murphy.
And Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat of Connecticut, joins me now.
So I just think there's a tipping point at which you can't get your democracy back. And I see all of these very purposeful lines of effort that the Trump administration and Elon Musk are taking. And I think we just have to be right now, at this moment, on red alert mode. And what I see, right, is the normalization of violence. When you're thinking about going out to a protest and you might get beat up by somebody who has immunity for violence in Trump's name.
That's all you have to do when you get out there. So remember this. If you get into a fight and the cops show up, scream Trump's name, and automatically they have to let you go. And people apparently on the left buy this. Somebody said, why am I okay with a billionaire who's unelected? I'm okay with him exposing stuff. I don't think he should have access to the Treasury. I don't think he should have access to a lot of things that they say he's got access to that he doesn't really have access to.
You know, it's funny that the Democrats seem to be going absolutely crazy over the fact that he's unelected.
Yeah.
But they don't have any problem with all the bureaucrats that aren't elected that are spending our money like it's going out of style.
That, right? They don't care about that career politician that is using these things as their piggy banks. They don't care about that. I didn't vote that person in. And one of the big issues that I've had for the last several years on both sides of the aisle is they've decided they're supposed to be the power of the purse. They're supposed to be the law creators and givers, if you will. And then the president signs off on all of these things. It's supposed to be one of those things where like, hey, we're doing this. They have allowed their power to be usurped and in many cases given it away. And then on top of that, when they haven't done that, they've kind of kicked everything to agencies and says, you guys can craft some stuff. You guys can come up with some fines. You guys can do certain things. Well, I didn't elect those people. That's not a law. But across the country, you're seeing more and more of that. And it is frustrating. So, yeah, the way they make it out is he has got access to every single thing out there. That's not true. The way they make it out is not only does he have access to everything, at any given time, he can flick a switch and change everything. Right, Chris?
I don't think you can underestimate the impact of what's happening in our media infrastructure, where major platforms are either under the direct control or influence of the administration. And then what you're seeing now is an attempt to capture the funding streams of the government so that Elon Musk or Donald Trump can turn off your grant payment to your elementary school if it doesn't pledge loyalty to Donald Trump's political positions, or your mom's Social Security check if she goes online and says something critical of Elon Musk or Donald Trump. I mean, I just think if we don't stop this very soon, it is going to be hard to mount a credible political opposition in the not-so-distant future. So this is the moment to me.
Of course it is, because you're selling the urgency. You're selling the fear that everything's going to be gone. Elon Musk it's interesting what he's doing. I don't think, somebody said, well, yeah, Chad, cutting all the stuff, it all adds up. It doesn't matter how much we cut until we address the three big issues with military and the defense spending that is out of control, and we need to get it. Why are we paying 10 times retail for stuff? Why are we buying things that we no longer need because we signed a contract, and so we're going to fulfill that contract, and in that contract, we are having people produce stuff that will never see the light of day and just sit in warehouses or be sold for pennies on the dollar. Why are we doing that? And nobody wants to talk about the things like Medicare and Social Security, because that will get you thrown out of office fast. But by not addressing those things, we're going to make it worse. So many people out there just want you to lie to them, I guess. But if you hear he's got access to everything, that's not true. And somebody just said he paid Elon $100 to fix his credit. Let me know if it worked. What'd it get you on your FICO? I'm at 800 right now, man. I'm doing great. I'm like getting 0.9% on everything. Well, let me know. I'd love to hear about that. Coming up, guy named Matt Murphy. He's got a ponytail. That's what I hear. He's straight ahead. It is the Chad Benson Show. Super Talk 99.7.
completely. Yeah, I don't believe in a government that's big enough to tell me that I can't kill myself.
No, I'd love that. I was going to do that. I saw that Gallup poll. We're on the air now. You can talk. Ladies and gentlemen, you were talking about killing, if you have the right to kill yourself. That sounds like a good topic. Because you said he's going to...
There's a Tennessee lawmaker, and I'm going to tick people off. There's a Tennessee lawmaker, a Democrat from Nashville, that has presented a bill. Apparently, he has presented it over the course of several years, and it always gets shot down. But it would give terminally ill patients the right to decide to end their own lives. And I don't believe in a government that's big enough to say no.
No, I absolutely am there with you. Many of you listening are probably like, no, that's awful. But it's not talking about, it's not Canada where you're like, I feel sad today.
Right.
You know, it's people that are suffering with the diseases. They're never coming back from them. And there is no hope today. Maybe 20 years, but not today.
Well, and so to say that I don't want a government dictating whether or not you make that decision isn't to say that if someone came to me and said, hey, Murphy, I need some counseling. I found out that I have cancer and I'm terminally ill. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't advise them to do something differently or that from a spiritual perspective you would have a different outlook or a different perspective. From a government interference standpoint, I just disagree with the government interfering with that decision-making process. And I understand that it's one of those things that, you're bringing together religion and spirituality and government oversight and government overreach and obviously suicide rates are what they are. And so you bring that into the conversation. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot.
We've got to separate the difference between somebody who is struggling with severe depression or whatever, as opposed to somebody who's struggling with, like you said, a terminal illness.
Right.
And so many people out there have had family members, and you watch them wither away in the pain and the suffering, and it's sad that people go through it. And I remember a couple of years ago in California, a woman who was dying, and she had to spend her last 3 or 4 months trying to get residence in Oregon so she didn't have to die in horrific pain.
Right.
And it was, no, I don't want to see people suffer. But I was saying I piss people off because we're, the sacred cow of, we have to, getting spending down is great, but until we address the elephants in the room, which is Social Security and, Medicare and of course, the insanity of our military spending where we sign contracts and we fulfill them even though the stuff we use is obsolete.
You know what we do, and it's kind of odd that we've allowed this to go on. We enter into these government contracts to get private sector businesses to build things that the government. So the military wants you to build something for them, like a bomb, and we pay them to research it, we pay them to develop it, we pay them to build it, and then we pay them for it.
Yeah, in some cases.
I mean, right? So we already paid them for it.
Yeah. Well, in some cases they do. In some cases they have those big shows where they bring it out and they show you because they'll sell it to the highest bidder.
Well, right. So it doesn't seem to me to be make a lot of sense that we're paying you to do all of the research on all of the development. We're paying you to build it, and then we're paying you retail to. So there's a lot of things in the military that I don't understand.
Well,
but it is a
government
sacred cow.
Spending is I remember watching AOC, and I'm agreeing with what she was saying. She was taking on a guy. They were talking about a light bulb or something, and she goes, "How much is this?" And he's like, it's, she goes, it's $43,000 or whatever.
Right.
She goes, this is like a nickel. Why are we paying this kind of money? And I'm like, I'm with her. Why are we paying this kind of money for this stuff? Rand Paul's brought up, we have stuff that is completely obsolete, yet we sign the contract, so we build it, and we stick it somewhere and hope there's a war that we can send it off to.
Oh, yeah.
And it's never going to be used by our guys.
Maybe we can take it over to Israel.
Maybe we can.
Use it in the Gaza Strip.
Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Matt Murphy. He's straight ahead. He's got the hits for you. 40 minutes nonstop. Swinging the hits, baby. Number one with a bullet. It is the Matt Murphy Show straight ahead. It's Super Talk 99.7.